Okay, I think the stream's live. You see my screen, Tig?
Yep.
Those of you that are joining or watching the replay of this is my first time going live in quite a long time, so I am trying to get this set up. Just bear with me. Yeah, I'm trying to like find the stream here. Oh, there, you can see it? So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Sorry. This is a struggle right now. Let me see. Ah, there it is. Okay. Just need to send this out. Okay, I think we're ready to start. Like, if you can just kind of keep an eye on chat and see if anybody manages to come in. Thank you guys for being patient. Hopefully I'll get a better know how to work this stuff a little bit better next time. This is not exactly how I'm used to streaming. Usually I do them privately, but it's a bit of a learning curve trying to get used to YouTube again. So take everything looks okay on your end?
Yep.
I'm just going to start to get into it.
Let's go.
You know, we're basically, the thought for today is just to go through a bunch of charts and see what we see and see if there's anything that looks interesting, see if there's any setups on the horizon or maybe immediate, and you know, and just kind of go from there. So that's basically what we're going to do. If there's any requests, feel free to throw them in chat and we will get to them. We'll definitely get to them. Let me just type that in there. So yeah, Tig, I mean, and you feel free to interrupt me anytime. You know, so I'm also doing this stream with Big Tig. He's, you know, we've done the last few videos that we've put out together, talking about natural gas. We've talked about a few different stocks, And there's actually some pretty cool, like pretty exciting stuff that's coming, on the horizon, maybe over the next week or so, like some other plays and stuff that we've been talking about for a while. Um, so yeah, those videos will be out soon. We're still working on those. But I'm going to start here with ES. Very simple. Today we made a slightly new all-time high. Broke 7,000 again. Got up to 7,043 before kind of closing the day below, ending in, this is what I would class as a swing failure pattern. Something to be a little bit aware of. Just today, a bit of indecision. There was, there was a lot of, I think Powell spoke today. You had a lot of earnings today after hours, which were, there was quite a bit of movement after, after the market closed. You had Tesla, you had Meta, Microsoft earnings, and again, there was kind of a lot of big players out there that had some, that's definitely going to affect how tomorrow opens, et cetera, et cetera. But on ES, it's quite simple. I would just, again, this is a run of the highs. Close below, pretty classic swing failure pattern. Not the end of the world, but and kind of the way that this candle is currently positioned, being it's basically like a beautiful, perfect doji. Any side, and kind of like how I treat this is kind of whatever side it takes out next is kind of the side that I would, um, that I would basically kind of look for continuation in that aspect. I mean, look at the chart. It's up only for the most part. We had that big corrective, I mean, this is a nasty, disgusting move down, tariff based last year, et cetera, et cetera. And it's been basically up only since. Trend is your friend. You zoom out, the trend is like very, obviously up and to the right. So it's like hard to want to fade that. This is like, to me, again, this is just more like a short term type of play. In terms of looking for maybe a potential bit of a pullback, maybe come back down to test like the 68, 6,900 level, something like that. I could see that off of a move, like kind of like we had today, especially with, I guess, I don't know, earnings. I don't know, Tig, I don't know how much you saw, but earnings were a bit of a mixed bag to me. They seemed kind of okay. Um, the only one that took a pretty sizable hit was Microsoft. Actually, it was down almost 8%, basically immediately once earnings were released. But last I checked it, I bounced back a bit. Meta looked okay. Tesla looked okay. Like those were doing pretty well. Tesla probably the best out of the bunch. But you know, I don't have I don't have like too much exciting stuff to talk about ES. I just think that you have a bit of an indecision day. We did make a new high. Obviously, like the larger trend at play is up and to the right. I don't really see that changing. But just when I do see kind of like this run of the high, close below, doji, indecision type candle, just this is just like on like a short term time frame. This is just kind of like a cautionary candle. And again, like if we saw a bit of a pullback off of a move like this, it's not the end of the world. It's just if this continues to range, then it ranges. Not a big deal. So I do think that there are like, I was kind of briefly going through some stocks earlier, and again, if people jump into chat and want to look at some other things, I'm happy to look at some crypto related stuff. Happy to do so. But for now, I just kind of like jump through it, see if there's anything that stands out. Can briefly check Lion had another lower low today. In terms of like we had this, then this is one that we've been covering. We did a stream on or a video on this last week. Talked about coming up to the $10 target here, hit your $10 target. You're still getting that pullback, and it's kind of drifting towards our first area of support. And again, for me, there's nothing actionable yet, but it is working its way down. Nice move, off of the high. Currently, you're down about 5%, but at today's low, you're down about 7%. So that's a nice move. That's nothing, that's nothing to, it's pretty significant. But I would, for myself, there's nothing here, at least until it comes down to test this region, which we'll see if it does. But let me just throw this on real quick. Yeah, so like your Tenkin, your blue line here is flattening out a bit. And if I had to guess, I think that this has a fair chance of taking another stab lower here, at least testing this green box before maybe getting a bit of a pop. So for Lion, not much to update. Just let 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 it do its thing, and don't force a trade. That's what I would say. You have anything to add on that, Tig? Feel free to interrupt me. No?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's looking good.
It's fine. Yeah, it's like it's this kind of classic tags are 618, giving you the pullback. You know, does it pull back into support yet again before another leg up? Like that's kind of how this will look. It looks healthy. It doesn't look like anything major. It's it's pulling back where I would expect it to pull back. And again, just kind of wait to see what the support reaction is here. This is the only really area of interest for myself, I guess. This is one that is, and I know, Tig, you're interested in this one. So this is one that we might spend a little bit of time on. And I think
Yeah,
that this
my kids
actually,
want to know how much Roblox we own.
yeah.
You own
So,
stock, Daddy?
so this is actually one of the more interesting charts that I think we'll see today. So this is a good one to kind of go over earlier. It's kind of I could just turn this off, try to clean it up a little bit. If you take a Fibonacci retracement coming from your low back in 2022 all the way up until like our current high that got put in mid last year, and you just take a fib retracement of that, to me this is a pretty solid pull. It kind of like meets the check boxes in terms of the levels that I would want to see held, and have responses off of to I would say like use it somewhat meaningfully. You got a bit of a reaction off your 382, got a bit of a reaction off of your 0.5 area. It's like it's kind of like checking the boxes for me. And now you tagged, so actually on a candle on Monday's candle here, it came down, and I didn't have an alert. I'm kind of surprised. I usually put alerts, but this is a level that I've been waiting for a long time. And like Big Tick, you've asked me about Roblox. Usually, I'd say once a week or something like that, and I kind of like briefly, quickly look at it. Nothing, it's nothing of interest, and I just say I'm waiting or whatever. But on this last spike down earlier in the month, it actually came into this block, like this order block that I've been waiting for. And this is not a bad, like to me, it's not a bad area. My problem is I missed this nice spike. So this would have been a nice one to get in on. And now we're getting like our secondary test, but we got an actual formal test of the 618. Like, so 2 days ago, we got that stab down. So far, you've got a decent, nothing crazy. But you're kind of getting like your secondary test of this block. And more importantly, the thing that like stands out to me is your actual 618. So again, you're seeing a response where you want to see it. You kind of got your first. The only thing I would say about order blocks and like this particular one is like, it comes down into it, and then you see, we got that initial reaction. Now we're giving like a secondary test. I think that like this region is still a decent region to look for, a trade and not financial advice. I actually did take a bit of a position today. Nothing major, just because I missed, this first one. Usually I have alerts set for this kind of stuff. But if you put Ichimoku back on, this is kind of like the counter to like, and like what I would say is being a little bit cautious in this region is you can see what happens very clearly when things start to flip, right? So like you get, this nasty down move, big close inside a cloud. You actually get your close outside a cloud, gives you your back test, and then it's just nasty, right? Like it has no chance basically. And on this test into the order block, you got your nice push higher. It's a pretty sizable move. That was a 27% move. Like that's a very sizable move for a week long rally, I guess you could say. Oh, where did it get rejected from? Your Kijun. And I mean nasty. Like, so in terms of like, you have conflicting signals here, which is why, like for myself, I did take a position on it. It's a small position, and I wouldn't mind it actually coming a bit deeper. maybe giving this trend line like a formal test, so that would put it to, high 60s or something like that. I wouldn't mind a little bit of chop around here. And after a pretty nasty rejection like we just saw here, that's, again, do we start to kind of form a range in this region, which I would be okay. And, to be honest with you, like if we do get another pop off of this level, and I don't get any, I don't get like a chance to kind of compound my position. For me, if it came back up to like high 80s, back around where this Kijun is, I would probably exit that and just take the win. Again, not financial advice, of course, nothing I say ever is, but I'm just kind of talking you through like what I would be thinking, in the current position that I just took today. Kind of like how I'd be looking to play that. So like I wouldn't mind a bit of chop. I wouldn't mind honestly some deeper levels to kind of get probed here. And Tig, we talked about this earlier, but like it's like if you like Roblox at 125 or 140 or whatever it is, like you're gonna love it at 75, right? So it's like in terms of like if you're bullish on the company itself and you're looking for a chance to get in or get back in or whatever it is, which I was in Roblox, I got a decent amount of this move, but admittedly I sold too soon. And it was a very nice trade the last time I was in it. But I sold quicker than, I kind of wish I did. But, money's money, profit's profit, happy. It's all good there. But I definitely did not let it ride up this far. So I'm kind of happy to like, dip the toes in around here. You're getting a nice pullback. I mean, off of your current high down to this 618, it's literally a 53%, 53% pullback if you want to call it that. But again, if you like it up here, you like the company, you like the fundamentals or whatever it is, you're going to love it here. So I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Tig, but like kind of what
Yeah,
your
I mean,
thoughts are.
I was in the same boat as you. I owned it at like $30 and then sold it too early on the way up. And then
Yeah.
I think I tried to take a stab around $100 for like a longer term play, just small like nibble. And finally I bought like a second little bit in the 75 range like a week ago or so. So I've definitely been looking at this one too, just for a
Yeah.
long time.
I know.
You know,
It's, something that like my kids still play.
got to get
The
the
kids are
rebate
still
from the
active,
kids, right?
right? We talked about this with Nat Gas. It's like if you're long Nat Gas, you're hedging your bill, right? In a way, it's like in a way. So it's like if you buy Roblox and you have kids that spend a ton of money, like, are you kind of benefiting from that? In a way, you are, right? It's like it is. It's like a rebate. No, but yeah. Anyway, technically, I would say as far as confluence in the region, which that's a big part of what I like. And you kind of have these anchored VWAPs. There's two different ones that I'm using, and that kind of forms this bit of a band here. Um, and this one, the lower one, is from this is the more recent one. So this one right here, or is that the old one? That's the older one. That's from the very low of this last one here. But I just, you have a nice trend line. You have the golden pocket sitting here. You have, and I'm talking about, so you have the larger golden pocket, right? And then there is another pull that I did literally from, the beginning of this insane rise. So you have a very, these basically between these two very important pivots. And this Fibonacci retracement on its own had excellent confluence. Like, I mean, it was an excellent pull. Your 382 perfectly respected here, gave you another rise all the way back up to this key level. Which this key level, all that was this prior high from 2021, right? So like you had to spike up above, failed, pull back, rejection, and this is kind of what happens when you have um when you're unable to continue. This is obviously very significant resistance up here, which was prior, big resistance prior to that as well. And then you're getting your, significant pullback. But, again, I like this region. I think if you start to trade below this anchored VWAP, especially on the low though, you start to trade below like mid 60s, then I would be less excited to hold the position. That's what I'd say. Because at that rate, if you start to kind of lose, especially like this bottom anchored VWAP of support, your 6.6 that's sitting here, you start to lose that, then it's just seems a bit likely that you're gonna test some lower levels, and that wouldn't be a good thing. Again, if you're like in a position here, if you're comfortable with it, obviously there's a lot of different ways to play it. People don't want to overthink it. You want to have a small position here and then kind of add if it was to probe these lower levels. That's something that everybody would have to decide for themselves. But from like a trading standpoint, I'm not typically one that would like to, if I'm again thinking about this purely from a trading aspect and not like a long-term willing to DCA, willing to, like have my investment hat on and have exposure to what I would think is a decent company, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like how you play this would change. But from a trading perspective, I think if you see below 64, something like that, then that wouldn't be a good thing. And then the trend. So again, the thing that you have working against you significantly right now is this current trend. Very bearish. Obviously your TK lines are bearishly postured. Your cloud is very bearish. You're well under even your 10 kin. It's just like this is really so like if you were to delete everything, if you were to delete all the rest of the analysis and just purely look at this from Ichimoku, like there's very little reason why you would want to take a long position. Like this is not you're definitely going against you're going against this. Like if anything, maybe if you're kind of counting on another mean reversion, I could maybe see that. But really, like you're looking for shorts. Like you're looking for like, counter, if you're going with the trend's bearish. So you wouldn't really want to be looking for any significant longs just based off of that. So you kind of have two opposing forces. I'm a fan of like, I'm not against taking a position here. And again, if I get the bounce, I'll probably take that. I'll just take the win and look for another setup. Because again, the trend is bearish, but coming into what so far has not only been support, but I think this is pretty significant support around this area. I don't mind taking a shot basically, and kind of like see if it can pick up from here, give me a nice move. Again, what was that move? Like off of this low here, you're looking at, again, maybe like a 20 to 25%, another, if it was to spike up again, into your cage and something like that, again, you're looking 20, 25%. That's not bad. The last time it happened kind of quickly. So it doesn't have to, seems different or it seems like a decent area. It's just, you kind of, again, two opposing forces, but this was kind of like a pretty good case study. And I think this is one that, it's nice to see like different, like the technicals at work and support holding where you would want it to hold and resistance kind of where you would want to see it. And like, this is just, this one's worked out quite well. So it's definitely worked out quite well to wait. That's the thing. I wasn't in a rush. And, when I sold last year, and, it kind of kept going and going, it's, patience paid off waiting for another shot. Basically, it's like you don't need to FOMO necessarily. You don't need to rush into things. And it's kind of, here we are, basically like 6 months to 9 months later, whatever it is. It's like now we're getting another opportunity at to kind of see if we can pick it up here and maybe get a nice bounce. Apple, not much to say. Bottom of cloud. Wow. So this is kind of, so again, so there's not anything else on here like in this immediate screen that you can see. So this is a nice example of Ichimoku. So basically, you got your bearish TK cross. Um, you got your close inside a cloud, and when when this happens, a lot of times you're looking for your edge to edge. You're looking for price to gravitate towards the other side of cloud, which it did perfectly. So you got your edge to edge trade here, and where is your current support? Which for those of you who've been following me for a long time know, here's your yearly pivot, and guess what? Came down, tapped it, and gave you your basically your mean reversion. So very like this chart, very technical, and you know, I don't have too much to say as long as in this posture, I would say it's a bit more neutral-ish. It's a bit more neutral-ish, maybe a bit more bearish for me, just because of the TK orientation. It's bearishly crossed, but you're inside a cloud. You did bounce pretty nicely off of the bottom of cloud slash your yearly pivot. So again, this like a week ago, this is a great area to take a shot, right? Like you have really good confluence here. But you know, in terms of this being a major low, I don't feel comfortable, you know, saying, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if we actually rolled back over. Um, you got your reversion. Maybe it comes down to test kind of this region again, chops around a bit. That's kind of like what I would say, you know, has like a decent chance to maybe give you a larger bounce up out of cloud. But as long as you're in cloud, there's not much to say. Basically, on this daily time frame, which we can go look at a different time frame too. You know, we'll look at a little bit higher time frame. But you know, as far as you know, what's going to give you the closest next ready signal to maybe you know get an entry on Apple. Well, to the long side, you really want to see it above 270, you know, above cloud again. So it's about 273, 274. You want to see it kind of pull its way out of there. And then it gives you one of my favorite setups. You know, basically, if Apple can kind of piece itself together here, get back above cloud around you know 274 something like that, then you're positioning yourself for the bullish TK recross above cloud, which is like, man, that is one of the, you know, if I see that, I'm looking for new highs. Like I'm looking for new all-time highs, looking for, you know, again, maybe another nice leg up where, you have blue sky breakout, looks good. But for now, this is you know on the daily time frame. This is very neutral to me. If anything, it's a bit more bearishly postured to me. But it's nothing that I'm jumping at the chance right now to take a long. Your long chance was here. Literally your long, your mean reversion, that play like that happened on this pivot retest, bottom of cloud, edge to edge completion. Like that was your optimal chance. But now it's really nothing here. It's patience as far as this goes. So let's look on wait. Let's look on like a weekly or something. And kind of see. So again, you got your pivot. Weekly is, you know, cloud's still bullish. You got your close below your 10 can. You kind of have the C clamp forming here. So, and all, again, all that really is you have a big, you know, like when your TK lines, your blue tenkin, your yellow Kijun here are, you know, you see your Kijun start flattening out. Your tenkin is very far away from it. Just, you know, just says that there's, you know, that's like really in a nutshell, be careful. Um, be a little bit careful here. And you know, your 10 kin is at 266. So again, if you get a close above that, that would be a good sign for, you know, potential continuation after you kind of got your bit of a pullback here. Or you know, for like a full mean reversion on the weekly, which this one isn't super clean. Just want to make sure. Yeah, I am on that one. But like that's putting you around 229, 230, something like that for like another, you know, for like the kind of like equilibrium retest. So like that, your equilibrium is right here. It's actually at your 229, 230 region. Going back to your daily, yeah, that would put you a bit lower. Definitely put you a bit lower. So one thing too, if you want to combine some things, kind of look at, oh wow, oh geez, okay. So you had like phenomenal confluence, like exceptional confluence here. Okay. So you had your pivot, your yearly pivot, which I love that level on its own, honestly. It's one of the very few things that like I pay a lot of attention to. And again, for those of you in VIP who've been following me for years now, it's like, you know, first of the year, first thing I'm looking at, yearly pivots, see where they are. But you look at that, you have the bottom of the cloud confluence, edge to edge completion, and your yearly pivot, and it's also your 382. Just perfect. And you got your perfect bounce. Okay, like that's outstanding. Like I wish, yeah, that's okay. Very good. Now, to me, interesting part is if you lose this low, meaning if Apple was to roll over again, get a daily close outside of cloud, below cloud here in this current posture, especially losing this pivot, I would be very bearish Apple. like for the short term. Okay, short to medium term. This is a daily time frame, so this stuff can take time. Um, again, right now I'd say it's neutral. Neutral, bit more bearishly postured to me, but it's more neutral. Like it's kind of like it's not over, it's not slower. It's got your mean reversion, got your bounce where you wanted to see it. Now what happens next? Close below cloud, especially close below this pivot, close below your 382, then I would be looking for that pullback, which I think you know, the 50% retracement is your weekly key June. So it puts you around, you know, again, that 229 gives you the 50% retracement. And then, you know, your golden pocket, I'm not going to draw it out, but it's obviously a bit deeper. So like then you can use the Fibonacci retracement levels to also help guide you as, you know, if price was to start working its way lower, this kind of gives you like meaningful targets, if that makes sense. And then you have your S1 pivot at 197. It's slightly above your 786, but this is just kind of giving you, and then again, this is for, you know, this is yearly levels. So this is talking about 2026, like in terms of interesting levels from a pivot perspective, like, you know, these are kind of, I don't want to say they're like magnets, but they're just giving you, you know, if it's below your yearly pivot, you're in a bearish posture, you're working your way lower. This just kind of gives you an idea of like where price could be headed to. You know what I mean? So to the top side, which would be a new all-time high, this would be your close, you know, outside of cloud, let your Tenkan kind of start to curl upwards, like you'll literally see it. You know, you see your Kijun probably flatten out a bit, and then you'll see this start to go up. And then, you know, price will be up here. You'll get your bullish TK recross above cloud. It's probably not good using all green for that. But that would, you know, again, for when you have a blue sky breakout, when you have, like, there are, you know, you can use, you know, fib extensions, and there's all kinds of things that you can use to kind of like try to find confluence for certain levels above you, but a really nice, simple, easy, mathematically approved, you know, way to kind of look at potential targets above you are your pivots. Give you a fair idea of like where, you know, you could potentially see some resistance, stuff like that. So yeah, you know, as far as Apple goes, below 243 on a closing basis, not good. You know, the only thing is your Kumo is still bullish, but if it starts to trade below that, you'll see your bearish Kumo twist, and then it's kind of like all, you know, it's not the best. It wouldn't be the best if you're like super bullish on Apple. I think, especially, I'd say like short to midterm, if that happens, you know, then you're going to see some lower levels, and you're going to see maybe some decently lower levels, which maybe could give a really good, you know, really, really solid entry, for a nice long swing, something like that. But, you know, I wouldn't count Apple out. I mean, and if you zoom out, it's outstanding looking. You know, just like a lot of other things are. And, it's just not at an actionable area for me though. So it's kind of like a wait and see. Your last very extremely actionable, you know, was a week ago. That was a phenomenal setup. Like that's an amazing setup. But for now, it's wait and see. It's what happens here. Below this, especially on the day close, you're looking for, you know, I would say a move at least to test your weekly key June 50% retracement here, looking, you know, around 228, 230, something like that. And then, you know, if you're bullish and you're praying to the bull gods, you really want to see price get back above cloud again, and then look for a continuation to all-time highs. That's Apple. American Eagle, man, this is another one, Tig, that sold too early, but just absolutely killed it. I know I got in it. It was like $11 or something like that. And like, you know what? This is one of those rare instances where it wasn't even about the chart. It was about Sydney Sweeney. And when I heard that she was doing ads, you know, for American Eagle, that's what it was. It was insta buy. I just had a feeling, and my gut was right. But, you know, I mean, this was like a pretty disgusting. Here's a chart that looks like just crazy, right? But you can kind of see it had found some support down here. It's kind of like trading in a bit of a range, and then obviously the Sydney Sweeney news and all that was just like, you had a feeling that the stock was about to do a little bit of a pump. And so yeah, I think I got in around, it was like 1180 or something like that. And I sold literally here, like on this pump up into the golden pocket. So you see a 618 sitting right here. I'll draw this out so people can see it. So people can see that. So again, this is why I love Fibonacci. This is why I love the golden pocket, especially. Like you got your high, low, push right up into it, and you got a really nice pullback into your anchored VWAP, by the way, which has like been phenomenal support on this rise up. But yeah, so I bought. I even felt like I was FOMOing, bought a bit late, but I felt pretty good about it. Had this nice gap up. Um, sold going into the golden pocket. Thought I was a genius. I was pretty happy with that. Pulled back, and then the thing just went to $28. So I missed that whole rally, but that's okay. I kind of like got what I wanted to get out of it, which is okay for me. But ultimately, again, it's got kind of one of those sold a bit early. I didn't bother trying to play this retracement, this gap fill. I mean, literally, right? You see the gap. Zoom in. This is a big gap. Literally fills the gap and then just rips upward. I missed this entire play, but caught this move. That was good enough. That was a nice little bump last year. But next, so kind of like what's next for American Eagle. You're kind of at again, kind of like an interesting. You're at your 382. Your Kijun is coming up, which has been really good support. When you got this. So here's literally your bullish TK recross right here. You see that bullish TK recross above cloud? You get it, and it's just vertical, just absolutely huge move. And then now you're getting your mean reversion. So basically almost there. It's basically there, almost there. You do have some confluence here in terms of your, your Kijun is basically it's very close to your 382, and like this is not a bad area. Again, like if you're waiting and you're patient and this is something that you wanted to trade. I mean, this thing's up significantly. It's giving you another retracement. I will say that if you start to lose your Kijun and, it's like this pivot is untouched so far. So like this is kind of an example where you have to pick and choose and, is this something I need to get in? Is this something that I don't really feel that strongly about? And kind of like figure out kind of where you would sit on American Eagle. But you do have a reason to look at along here. For me, I would probably rather, I would be on the more cautionary side. Because like, and it's a personal thing. When I've already made a fair amount of money off of a name, I don't necessarily feel the need to keep trying to extract from that name, if that makes sense. Like that's a personal thing though. It's not, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to like ruin my streak or whatever it is. But for me, I wouldn't be, especially in this posturing, it's like to me, it's more of like a kind of like a coin flip in a way. And I'd probably want to look at, I want to see kind of like what does a weekly look like. Yeah, okay. All right. So this like solidifies it to me a bit more. Because if you look at where your weekly Tenkan is, it's literally your pivot. So I like that a lot. Like I like that a lot more in terms of, if I'm looking for a trade to get back into it, see if I can get, another nice swing on American Eagle, something like that. When you look at it from the weekly standpoint, what you really have here is your 382. A lot of it, sometimes it's good enough, but I like to have other reasons to want to buy here. And, like even going back to a daily time frame, you kind of have like this, you do have like a level, like like a daily here. It's just not really good enough for me to want to, like, to me, this is decent confluence. The last time that you had your Kijun tests around here, it did moderately well, right? So like this has shown to be a pretty decent area. What I wouldn't mind on something like this is to actually have it kind of prove to me that this is actually going to hold. So if you do get your tests, you get your reaction, and you see again that like, if it's similar to this where it kind of holds the support like you would want it to see, then it's kind of showing you that yes, like this is an important support and it could be a nice area to hide behind. that makes sense. So like this is one where like if I have to trade American Eagle, kind of get your reversion. If it does end up holding, you can always just kind of wait and kind of let the market show you that it respects a level, and then you can get in even a little bit later. But then you have then you have the thing I like about that is then you have a very clean invalidation, right, wherever that low is. So like that's your trade setup, and then be looking for either continuation or find whatever target that you would want for this, or maybe this goes up to another new high. So I would say for this, for this particular level, all you really have here, you have your 382 and you have your daily Kijun, which is decent. That's decent. But when I see this right below it and you have a pivot that would fill this gap fully, to me, this gap is filled. I know some people will disagree. Some people will argue. You have your gap up, and then you have like half gap fills, which happens. Okay. And like to me, that's checked off. It's definitely, the significance of that is way less. It doesn't necessarily need to come fill the whole gap. But the thing that I do, I mean, so like again, to me, that's like a minimum. That's not that significant to me anymore. To me, it's kind of already checked off, moved on. And honestly, like filling the gap is a little bit more. I'd be a little bit more concerned about that, to be fair. But what I do love is I love the pivot being where it is. I love that it's your weekly Tenkin. These line up pretty nicely. Again, you can see where your golden pocket is on this retracement. It's literally sitting right on your Kijun, and then your Tenkin is lined up perfectly right on your pivot. So I like that confluence a lot more. So that makes sense. Like, does that make sense to you? Like how I would look at that?
Yeah,
I want to make sure I'm
definitely.
not missing anything. Again, first, kind of where we are now, I would want to see this turn around, and then maybe I would chase it a bit later, and have a place to hide, right? Like have a place to put my stop, and this isn't something that I would try to catch and try to like nail the perfect low or anything like that. I would rather do that. I would feel a bit better about going long American Eagle on a pivot retest, similar to it's like you have pretty good confluence, just like you did, I think, on Apple. That was great confluence at the yearly pivot. That was great confluence. This to me is it's I would say it's the same. Like I like that quite a bit. The only thing again, like filling the gap, like fully filling the gap, you would not want to give it that much leeway. But though, it's like I would not want to see too much weakness below this. And I think this prior highs where I have this purple line already marked off, I think that's a pretty good level as far as a window. If you start to see it too much below that, then yes, you have your weekly Kijun, you have your golden pocket, which like the golden pocket, especially on like first attempts, a lot of times, especially in stocks, you get you have a decent chance at getting seeing some respect. Yeah, at least seeing some kind of bounce off of there. But you know, the lower you go below this pivot, yes, you have some good technical levels below it, but how much, like, you would have to decide for yourself, how much room are you going to give, right? Or maybe, if this is a stock that you believe in long term for whatever reason. For me personally, it was just like the Sydney Sweeney hype, kind of like a quick, I saw a potential for like a quick pop, which literally there was a pretty quick pop. But like, I don't know about American Eagle for me long term, right? This is just like a trade. To me, it was a pretty good trade thesis, worked out. But is this something I believe in long term? I don't, probably not. That's just me. Nothing against them, but retail has been tough as it is, right? Take like that. Like retail has been a very difficult place to be. Um, but in terms of technical levels, I mean, there's a million ways that you can play this. I would like, for me, I'd probably be a bit more patient. I likely wouldn't chase this, so that's just for myself. Doesn't mean that anybody else couldn't take a trade here. It's just I would probably wouldn't chase this. Like even if it comes into here, this isn't something I'm dying to trade. There's a lot of other things to trade, but if it came down to this region, then I would be more interested in. How I played that, I really couldn't tell you right now. I think like I'd be more prone for this pivot test. You see the pivot respected. I wouldn't probably give it too much leeway. Um, you know, something like in this box. Would it really want to? I really wouldn't want to see it too much lower there, even though you got your 618, which that's a nice bounce zone typically. You know, another way that you can play this, like you again, not financial advice or anything, but like you could kind of start to ladder into it, right? So you have smaller orders, and then as you know, if it did manage to kind of stab down, sometimes you see that, like especially on tough market days, like you'll see, you know, in one day it could stab like all the way down into this pocket, but close strong, and then kind of start to work its way out of there. So like I've seen that many times. But like if you weren't going to be around, you're like, yeah, I like American Eagle. This is you know, blah blah blah. Your thesis, you think this is going to go higher. One way that you could do it is again, it's a kind of like DCA in, but DCA in intelligently, like at specific technical levels, right? And like you wouldn't just want to, I mean, you know, likely just keep adding to it the lower it went. But I'm just saying, if there's like specific areas, this is one way that you could reduce your risk. The only reason, you know, the only tough thing is if you don't get all your orders filled, you might end up with a smaller position that maybe you want. Then maybe you'd have to kind of add later on a sign of strength, which isn't always the worst thing either, depending on like your strategy. But this is one that I use from time to time. Like when I feel good about the name, but I'm kind of torn between the technical levels, but I know that, you know, and this is like just trying to get as optimal, as good of a fill as you can. Like I will do this sometimes where I'm not like, you know, I don't want to be all in one level. And because I think, you know, again, this is a kind of a good example of that where like I could see, you know, I can kind of see like the classic 618. That's one that I almost like to take no matter what. It's just, you know, and you get a feel for the chart, think, you know, is it going to respect it? Which by the way, it respected it very well on the way back up, right? So like that's a nice sign that on this 618 test you got a very significant move off of that. So it coming from the other direction, giving you a pullback, does it come into the 618, which also happens to be in kind of like the same region, right? Does it give you like a nice response off of that? Even though maybe it ultimately rolls over and, you know, goes down, maybe it gives you a nice bounce, something like that, which is kind of all I would expect out of this, to be honest with you. So anyway, there's a few different ways to play it. Sometimes I like to do this, which for this instance, with the technicals kind of being what they are here, you know, Ichimoku is kind of like this is kind of again like an anti signal in a way. Like if it was to kind of work its way down here, it wouldn't look the best on this time frame, but on the weekly, like it would look pretty good. Your weekly again, well, this you see like an absolutely hideous looking triangle, but like you see that it would be right into support, right? So that wouldn't be so bad. That's pretty decent. Any questions? Think you good?
Yep.
All right. Let me check my phone real quick. The wifey texted me. Um. So yeah. Well, that's you know. Remember we were talking before this. You were saying if you run out of things to say, if you run out of charts to look at.
Yeah.
I haven't even gotten to the out of the A's yet.
I know.
But I mean, this is something that like, you know. I mean, to be fair though, I would say Apple got a pretty good picture of that. Roblox, literally, it's like right at a pretty important level. American Eagle is coming up on an important level, kind of is at one, but you know, it's like there's some pretty decent setups on the horizon. What are we at? Like 48 minutes? Maybe we'll maybe I'll switch gears. Is there something you want to look at? Instead of continuing to go down this, because I could do this all day. Is there something that you want to look at?
I mean, I'm just looking at the list you got there.
Maybe just keep going. Well, this is actually a decent one too. So you know, this is one that I was talking about. That I traded. It's Dutch Bros. So I think my buy was at like $48. If I'm not mistaken, it was like 48.11. And like the entry was very simple. It came down to, you know, it did not swing fill this low, which I'll get to in a minute why I actually think that like there's a killer setup potentially coming. But this one was a very good trade. And I caught this one. But
Yeah, I missed
so
this. I didn't catch it.
so this one, the simple take is it's giving you like that double bottom, right? And it was very one directional. I thought at the minimum that you would have a good chance for a mean reversion, which it almost got on this first leg up. Almost gave me the 50% retracement. But I liked, this is another one that I like fundamentally, right? And I was like explaining to you what Dutch Bros was and like what they, I mean, I'm used to live in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm very familiar with Dutch Bros. They started in Southern Oregon. I literally lived in Southern Oregon for a little while, which like Dutch Bros is a big thing there, and like kind of, I guess not so funny, but they're actually leaving Oregon and they're relocating their headquarters to Arizona because I think Oregon is not a very business friendly state. So that's like actually like right now, like a hot topic in the news. But the anyway, for this, not to like get too much into that, to me there was a really simple setup. And it's just basically like what would have made this a bit cleaner is if this actually took this low, which it did not. So it's slightly, again, I would class this, double bottom, came down, tested the same level, and then gives you another, gives you a nice clean bounce. And this came up, like what I wanted to see was kind of this triangle that's playing out right now. It's like you have like a descending triangle, which is usually not the best thing if you're bullish. I was basically just waiting for the golden pocket, which ultimately got. And the golden pocket was slight front run of this, kind of like waiting for this third touch, classic triangle. This is like the confirmation touch, like if you're trying to look either for trend lines or triangles or whatever it is. But this one played out really nicely. So this was another beautiful trade, and it hit my target, which also happens to be the yearly pivot, which has not came up to touch the yearly pivot yet. It's not really in a posture where that seems to be happening anytime soon, but anything can happen. But as far as this triangle goes, which I do think, like, I give quite a bit of like credit to kind of how this is currently situated. Um, it's not looking so hot. So from a volume standpoint, you can see that like this is your macro value area high, this kind of this orange line that goes across. You got your rejection off of your golden pocket, which is also your yearly pivot. You haven't tapped the yearly pivot technically yet, but you came up to this area, and now you're not only are you pulling back, but you're starting to kind of like get acceptance. We are getting acceptance back, into back below your macro value high, which like to me is a decently significant area, especially with this kind of descending triangle formation. Naturally, again, these are usually, not always, but a lot of times they're bearishly resolved. What I would love, and so Tig, you can mark this one down. But what I would love is to actually get another test of this triangle. So like another test of the bottom. But I want to see this actually ran this time. Like I would love one of two scenarios. So either this turns into like a swing failure pattern where it again kind of works its way down and then gives you a quick wick below, and then like you have your invalidation, you have your entry, and then I would be looking to take this back up to for another test of the wherever the triangle is at that point. Or some kind of like technical, probably maybe a bit below it. Maybe there's a golden pocket somewhere around here that has something to do with this macro value area high, blah blah blah. I can see like a few different setups that I would be interested in. But as far as another long, I don't really have anything in mind on Dutch Bros until I see something like this. So like that's kind of like the first setup where you have your swing failure pattern. What would be another really nice setup too, which is also not good if you're like bullish on Dutch Bros right now, but what I would like to see is maybe even a bit of a failure here. And you come down to test the top side. You have this massive gap, by the way, like a huge gap. What would be not too bad is if it actually came back down to the top of the gap, which is also your S1 pivot, and then maybe it like forms a little bit of a range here, and then you get your acceptance back inside. Like that would be, again, invalidation. this would be your entry, and again, same thing. But like you have a very clean, clear stop at that point. This would be basically a deviation below like the bottom of this level, and then again be looking to take it back up to either there's some kind of technical level here or another touch of the triangle. And what would this be like? I would actually be a lot more bullish if something like this happened, just because it would be like your classic descending triangle kind of like fake out, right? So this is like your fake out of this bearish pattern, get accepts back above, and then you would look to, on this, I would be like kind of a lot more bullish in terms of for like a larger move, after that. So this is like your second, either you have a quick swing failure pattern, which to me, I see that, I take it. That's a very simple, easy trade to take. And invalidation wherever the wick low is of that swing failure pattern, and then you just hoping that it obviously goes your way. But something like this, a bit more structured, comes into again top of your gap, something like that, comes into this S1 support, and then gives you your reclaim back inside of the like what was once support. You basically want to see that flip back into support again, and then yeah, like that would be a pretty clean setup, which I can kind of see that happening, just because of like where like how the chart looks. Like that's kind of like a scenario that I think would be certainly something that I would be interested in trading. And then like the final setup. So again, for me, there's nothing here. This isn't something that I would want to short necessarily. But like I would say the final like bullish setup that you would want to see. Although I would be a little bit worried of like you have the fake out scenario, right? But it's for this to actually kind of chop around and then make another attempt. And then you want to see this actually flip, like break out the top side of the triangle and then maybe try for a nice rally, something like that. I just think I feel like that's a bit less likely, especially kind of like how this price action has been. And I would be more in the camp of like that being a possibility had you this being a swing failure pattern. If you had actually taken this low, taking it twice happens, but it's typically like when you have a swing failure pattern, takes the low. When you come back down again, you can see it do the same thing. That's not that. It just doesn't happen that often though. What usually happens more often than not is when you come down to take the low that's already like if you already ran any stops that were here, you take the liquidity below here, again you get your classic swing failure pattern. If it comes down again, it's usually not a good sign. It's usually like it's more of like a sign of weakness type of thing. Doesn't mean you can't. I've definitely seen it. Like you've had multiple, you've had another swing failure pattern and it rips it yet again. But that wouldn't be a good thing. The thing I like about this double bottom is that it's very obvious to me, like where, like you would be placing your stops, for example, or like where like the liquidity does sit. Like this is just asking to be taken. So either a swing failure pattern would be sweet. I'd be happy to take that, or that deviation, kind of like like it does run below, gets a bit deeper into like the top of this gap, S1 pivot, something like that, and then gives you the reclaim, something like that. Like that would be, to me, a great potential setup for a long on Dutch Bros. I just don't see anything. I don't really see anything here that's exciting. I say as long as it's in this triangle, kind of like not at any of the extremes, right on either side, I'm not that interested in it. It just seems like a kind of like a, I don't know, it's not interesting to me. But if it was to make another, come back down, test this purple line, bottom, the support region again, I would be very, very interested. So what are we at? Oh, 59 minutes. Look at that. Bought it at an hour. What do you think, Tig?
I mean, if you want, maybe you should do one of the healthcare ones that have gotten crushed.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we can look at
Maybe
that. So
maybe do like yeah.
yeah, this is one that I talked about in VIP very briefly. Just like it got absolutely crushed. Um, it got absolutely crushed. And I mean, my goodness. So this is Humana, and for some reason when I look at this, it just reminds me of Bitcoin. Like at the end of last cycle, how it just kept going down. You get your impulse, you have your range that gets formed, kind of chop, and then new lows, chop, new lows, and like this certainly feels like we've had a long range here going back to October 2024. I mean, look at this range here, and then holy smokes, it's just like this is questionable, right? Like, is this fresh momentum? This is a significant move. I mean, just to like the top of this, you're talking like 16 to 20%. So like, is this overdone? I mean, geez, it kind of feels that way. It's too late to be bearish here. Now, I would say for most people, they're probably looking at like, where can I buy this? Like when's a good level to try to try to buy this. I think you're at like an extreme where you're down huge, like you're down significantly. Do you get some kind of spike up like this? It doesn't feel like it, but you want to see this. This is not the same reaction as this, by the way. Um, in fact, like, so again, you have your big gap down, but you have like a decent looking candle over here, right? That kind of like, not only did you close a gap, you came all the way back up and filled it, and then you kind of formed your range. Now I mean, just look at the last 2 days. This is significant. So you have like a 20% gap down. I think it was like 19 or 20%. And then it literally closes at the low, opens again lower, and closes even lower, right? It's like, this is extremely bearish. And it even closed below your anchored VWAP, which is kind of like a level that I was waiting for to which kind of comes off of this low, which hasn't been tested yet. This is like your first real test. Okay. You go back earlier and yeah, sure. Like there's it actually was really good support early on, but you haven't seen a test of this yet because the move was so significant, right? Tough part about this is your golden pocket. Okay. Your golden pocket is literally right here. And you've had your tests. You've had your attempts. You've had your nice bounce. Again, golden pocket. I have a video. If you want to learn more about Fibonacci and golden pockets, I have a video specifically on it. How to trade it, etc., etc. Like I have a whole series on that. There's playlists on my YouTube channel that you can see if you're interested. But the last when we came into it on the first test, you had a 46% bounce off of that. Significant. That's insane. That's very good, right? In like a pretty short amount of time. Now the golden pocket has held up. So again, you got like your test into it, and you even got your 6-6 test. Another crazy significant bounce off of that. But now this is not good. Like this is not what you want to see. And again, you've had your range, you've had your support, for the last, year and a half, basically. We have been shopping around this region. And, obviously there was some Medicare news, it had something to do with like the payments or something like that. Not good. Anyway, market didn't like it. Didn't do very well. And unfortunately, the thing is like, what you do is like you go to the back to the left of the chart and you see, are you near an area of interest? Was there any interest here? And like there was a range here. You can see that. So like I would go back to this part back from 2016, 10 years ago, which ought to tell you how bad this actually is. And like you can literally pull your range levels from this region and look to potentially pick up an entry off of some kind of some kind of like old technical level. That's literally what I would do if I wanted to spend a bunch of time on this. What I would say is that I would say again, like this is an extreme, right? You're down a very significant amount in a very short amount of time. There has been no bullish reaction whatsoever so far, but I would be hesitant. Like to me, this is like kind of one of those. If anything, I would kind of maybe consider looking at getting some kind of like lower time frame type trade, maybe for a little reversion, something like that, if you really had to trade this thing. But this is a very dangerous. Like again, you've spent the last you spent the last year and a half trading in this range. And if you break, which you have clearly broken the low of the range, you've got acceptance below the lower range, you've lost all support so far. Man, like this is not a sign of strength, put it that way. Like if anything, I would rather let this, if this ends up being a really significant low where it is, then you want to see this kind of like show some kind of strength above, like let it kind of like prove to you that it actually is trying to, again, maybe this is just a deviation or whatever it is, outside of the arranged low, and you get acceptance back inside, something like that. But like that would give me more confidence to want to actually take a position versus catch this knife, because that's literally what this is right now. This is a knife, and you are below all major supports, local supports that have been relevant for the last year and a half. You're even below your anchored VWAP, although you're close, but you're still below it. You're below your S1 yearly pivot. I mean, this is significant. So as it stands, the next, like at a quick glance, the very next place. Okay, so like what you can do is you can kind of come back to this region that I was talking about, pull your fixed range and kind of see like if there's anything in here that lines up with anything interesting. And I mean, geez, you look at where your point of control, where your value area high here is here. Those might be a little bit hard to see, but you're kind of already testing into the top of that area. Like this is kind of like, you spent a lot of time forming a really tight range here. You can see clearly where your resistance was, broke out, and even gave you your back test. Like if you want to zoom in. So again, kind of like where your resistance was, broke out, back test, support, boom. Then it was just off to the races, right? Even gave you another secondary test here. Like, look at that. Give you another secondary test, like kind of in this region. Oh, that's your COVID dump. Very strong move up and out. So, this is kind of like the first area that I would look in terms of trying to find something that, to me, there's really nothing that exciting here. And again, you can kind of see again, like just from like your, I guess you could probably, so that is, yeah. So here's another thing. So this is your low, this is your high. So this, I did basically a fixed range pull that is trying to find, like, are there any areas of interest on this uptrend, right? So this is the beginning of the very bottom. This is the very top. So like during this entire uptrend, were there any interesting, volume nodes or anything that you could, kind of, anything that's going to help support kind of what price is done. And by the way, the whole time that it's been spending a year and a half, your support has been the top side of kind of like this volume node, right? Which like you're at a bit lower. So like 180, something like that, you'd really want to see that $180 area hold, which is basically this. So like you'll see this on my charts sometimes. It'll be labeled, see if I can find it. Oh my goodness. Where are you? Well, I guess I don't actually. I could just name it. So this is basically like a point of control. Okay, so like this kind of, except like what I would actually name this, and you'll see on my charts, is a high volume node here. So this just shows you. Oh, did that not even save? Oh, it did. You just can't really see it. Anyway, this is like a really pretty important area of support. So it's like kind of the midpoint of this range. If you can see that, it's basically the midpoint of this range. It's a decent, like significant amount of volume the last time, basically on this uptrend. This is showing you that it spent some time here, and you're not too far away from that. Okay, you lose this, so like you lose this 178, is that around 178, whatever. It's just, there's nothing below you, really. There's not much below you. I mean, then this this S2 at 150 becomes kind of your next hope. So below you have this high volume node at 178 that you really kind of want to see a bounce and see that held. I don't really have too much of an opinion on that. I wouldn't hold my breath necessarily, but this isn't an area that I would be aware of, at least. And then below that, then it gets worse, So I would say Humana is it's in dangerous territory. I would be careful to be overly bearish on this name right now just because of the severity of this move. And you can see again a lot of times, you get sharp moves down. There's chances for mean reversions, chances for snapbacks. Um, Although, like, here's a nice example, which this is coming from a much different posture, I will say. But again, you have a nice long-term kind of range that is kind of put in here. You get some sideways, but then on like the break of that is significant, and it's directional, right? Um, this is, obviously this is coming from kind of like a continuation of the down overall bearish trend, but are you getting your clean directional break here, and will there be follow through? Doesn't look great. So anyway, that's one that I think that's a good one though to pay attention to over the next week or two. And I'd be curious to see like there could be some decent low time frame setups that potentially I could see, although again higher time frame, this looks really pretty bad. This is bad. So try to kind of make an attempt here to kind of get inside a cloud, rejected, and it was bearishly crossed that whole time. Bit of a chop. So like when it starts to kind of give you this kind of signature, I look at this and I'm less interested in what Ichimoku is trying to say. The bottom line is you're clearly below cloud. Cloud's bearish. Again, you got your fresh bullish TK recross below cloud. That's very bad. And there is absolutely no reason to be bullish on this at all. Like really, like I mean, for on this, you're clearly below cloud. Not good. Um, and this looks like it just seems like it might have some momentum to actually probe some lower levels. Like this is very significant, but it's a good one to monitor. Here's what the daily is. It's a mess. See, like so when you see this, I don't even look at it because and like again, I literally just spent a bunch of time telling you this thing's been in a range for the last year and a half. So if it's been range bound in a year and a half, Ichimoku is basically useless in a range because it's going to give you so much noise, right? Ichimoku is a trending indicator. It's meant to identify and take advantage of trends. And when you are trendless, like this has been for the last year and a half, this is a waste of time. It's basically useless. So that's another thing. You kind of got to know when your tools are valuable and when they're not, and like when again, like when you want to trust the signals and when you don't. And this is the prime example of like why you wouldn't. And like you would definitely go towards, which again, I have range trading tutorials if you're interested. Also in my YouTube channel, you can find them where I go over exactly like how to trade price action like this. So to wrap it up, Humana looks bad, big gap down, big follow through so far. Absolutely no sign of strength. You're below all important supports, and I would say your next important support below you is 178, 179 region, and you probably want to see that held. And again, maybe at some point you get like a nice solid bounce, but here you really kind of would want to see like this anchored VWAP. You want to see this area kind of hold, and it just hasn't so far. It's very weak, but one to watch over the next week or so. See what happens. Any questions?
I got a couple other ones if you want to do a couple more.
We're an hour and 13 minutes in. I mean, we could. We could. Let's I kind of be curious, like if anybody has anything they want to say, or like anybody who's watching this might want to look at something. Oops.
One of the things I've been looking at that I think maybe we'll do a segment on at some point in the near future is all the software as a service stocks have just been
Oh,
absolutely crushed.
McDermott's one. Bill
Um,
McDermott. What's his? It's the dude with the glasses. Um,
I'm not sure, but
Service Now.
yeah, that one or even like CRM or Adobe, like all the charts look exactly the same.
No,
They're
so
all
that's what it
like
was.
um
Yeah, this guy's
I
funny.
think a part of it is that people are thinking that AI is going to kind of automate a lot of their service and, kind of killing their moat. But if you look at, I mean, dude, it's like every single one: Adobe, ServiceNow, CRM. Um,
Yeah, I mean, this was like a super hot stock.
yeah.
Like, yeah. Um, well, not so hot now. Let me just say that. Very like, yeah. So this is extremely like this is a very strong downtrend. Very strong. And if I had to look at this, like, and yeah, they just did a split, didn't they? Like they just did one. Which like typically that's I mean they're kind of like just to like they're like attention grabbers trying to like positively like affect your price when you do stock splits and stuff. You know, this one didn't matter. My God, this thing was just straight down. Very bearish, very bearish, and yeah, I mean, I this just seems well, you kind of ran this, okay, back at this high from back here. Yeah, oh my goodness. I think this has a lot of work to become something where I would even entertain some kind of entry. And
I mean, I'd be looking at all these as shorts potentially. So
yeah, well, I say you're a bit late. Like,
yeah, obviously it's late now, but maybe you can show some areas where, like, if it kind of
yeah, like I think
rallies.
it's okay. So, like, if you get something similar like this, where you get your equilibrium retest, you get your mean reversion. This is your chance, right? So, like, you know, I would wait. Like, if I had to short this, I would not want to do it unless you got here. Like you got some kind of again, like something similar like this where you get your mean reversion, and then like that's kind of where you want to take a shot, typically, right? And like look, it came like I mean, like perfect, right? It came right into it, and then look at it gap down. Just disgusting, right? Like just like anyway. And it's just been down only. Like this is it's these EQ retests that I think and maybe the next one is not a bad one too. Honestly, like this is very extended. Like price is very far away from your EQ, so like it wouldn't like again this like to me too late. Too late, and it's too late, and it's too late for a short, too early to long. Like, cause you're like, what are you longing? You know what I mean? Like, this is as far as the trend goes, the trend's very clear. This is extremely bearish. Kind of once you got through your chop, right? Like where you got your range and then it picked a direction. It's been very, this is like an extremely strong downtrend. I wouldn't, like, to me, there's really nothing to do until you got up to around, $150, something like that. Or like if you wanted to be hyper aggressive, this is the problem. Is like even if you made a new low, I would be like worried to want to short that because you are coming into, again, kind of like this, like this range here, right? Like this prior kind of like range, which like if this breaks down here, then you know what I mean. You're going to be trading back within this range into your S1. It's like I would be careful. Again, you're kind of late. Like you'd be late to the game. But like what is like a not what's like not a terrible idea, like where you have decent risk reward, is some kind of reversion play to look for, like if this kind of like continues up and then takes another leg, something like that. Like it's kind of waiting for that reversion, just like you got here. Um, that's kind of what I'd say. Um, Now on a higher time frame, I'd be kind of curious, like, holy crap. Okay, so like this is bad. Um, this is even worse. Like this is so you again bearish cloud, bearish Kumo twist happened right here. Your TK is very bearish. You're clearly below cloud. You even got your attempt, right? Or like you even got your attempt where you got your move back up to your Tenkin and then just a discuss. This was that move to the Kijun on the daily. You got your attempt and then just violent move down. Um, So, you know, like your TK lines are, you can see the forecasting dots, they are going to move lower over time. So to me, there's nothing. I mean, geez. Okay, so post. I didn't even see this because I forgot their earnings were today. Yeah. So like post market, this is already down into this range. Like you're already below this, you know, prior high, right? Like this is bad. Um, I'd say a level to keep an eye on is here. I'm gonna mark this off as a key level for right now. It's about $100. This is kind of like a clean SR flip. That's what I like about it. It's like an important high, came back up, back test, you know, support, 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 big move. So like this $104 level, I would say, is pretty relevant. And it's also kind of, it's basically where the bottom of your range is, right? So you see this red line here is like your range high. This purple line is not quite perfectly, but it's like close enough to be a range low. So this box to me, which is where it's trading right now. All right. So this box is basically this range. So you can have free movement in this region. So like I'm not overly excited to want to trade in here too much. And you can see post market after, you know, after earnings release, you're already in here. So when this opens tomorrow, you're gonna have a nice gap lower, and you know, who knows what'll happen after that. But basically anywhere in this range, I'm not overly interested. But if you get to the bottom of that, around $104, all of a sudden I become a bit more interested. And maybe this is just like a short-term move and it's able to pick itself back up. And if it gives you some kind of pop, guess what? What's waiting for you up here is probably more pain, misery, and suffering. Like as you know, as you know, your
Yeah.
tech and Akijin start to work its way down, then maybe you have kind of that same mean reversion that you had on your daily. Okay, so you remember this mean reversion. Maybe on the weekly time frame, you get that mean reversion. So on some kind of nice spike, which you know, like this, it's down here now, but like you have a lot of work to do to make this kind of attractive for what I would say is a short. Like right now, you have momentum on your side, but you're late to the game. And not only are you late to the game, but like you're so far away from your TK lines that this is very out of whack to me. This is like you're just late, you know. Um, but on
Yeah.
some kind of reversion, could be a nice short in the future. Um, or I would say kind of the first area where I would like entertain looking for a long on this. Which, by the way, currently, I
70.
mean, you're 49% off of your high. It's
I
probably
mean, the thing is still
somewhere
$136 billion
somewhere
market
around
cap.
here.
So it's, I mean, a lot of these things have
Yeah,
a long ways to go if things don't turn around. That's for
and
sure.
you're right about that. So like, you know, and I think that's like where you can incorporate like your fundamental background with you know, so it's kind of like helping you identify like if it's overvalued still, you know, even down 40% or whatever I said it was. Like the thing is, like this is a pretty nasty trend. Can you have reversion snapbacks? Yes, absolutely, you can have them. You had one here where like you had a very violent retrace, but guess what? It was just a lower high, and then you know you made you made a lower low. Like this, and like on the weekly, this is absolutely confirmed. Like this is a very significant, you know, bearish trend. You have your high, low, lower high, lower low now. So you know, do you get some kind of snapback? You get it here, but it's just another lower high before you make another lower low, maybe. But that's, you know, if I'm looking for a short, I want to do it. This is where like I more
Mhm.
would want to like take a shot, right? Like I'd be more in the camp of wanting to do that. Um, looking at a weekly time frame, daily is a bit lower. Daily is a bit about 150. So what is it on here? I think it was a little higher on this one.
160.
158, but like this will move down. Like this will these will move down over the coming weeks. So this will probably kind of line up a bit more, kind of like with where that region was. And then kind of here, like just a local level, okay, is kind of like something in this region where you can see where the bottom support was. You got your bounce and then fail. So this is kind of like You know, this is like an area, and I would actually, you want to be real precise, I would draw like a little box here of like, now this would be resistance. So it's kind of like what was support flipped into resistance, and it just, once you lost this support, it just nuked really hard, right? So like kind of like trying to find, again, if this finds its footing somehow and has a nice rip over the next month or two, 3 months, something like that, kind of keeping an eye on like where this region is, where your TK lines are, you know, maybe there's something there for a short, something like that. But yeah, I'd say that service now, that's yeah. And there are quite a few like that, probably all look pretty similar, you know.
Oh yeah, they all have the exact same chart.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I'd say. Like it's very bearish. I would say very bearish, not good, but you're also at like an extreme. You know what I mean? It's like you're way too late to short, in my opinion. But you, so like, you know, I wouldn't. This is kind of, I would be afraid to short. Basically, it's like a snapback isn't asking too much. You know, it wouldn't take that much to get a bit of a rally off of this. But is that a significant low, and this thing's going to make new all-time highs? Doesn't seem that likely, but it might. You know, but it's like it's got a long way to go to be anything remotely bullish, as far as the chart looks. So yeah, I would say, yeah, you're currently, again, this is post market, you're at 121, so you're even below like the top of like what this range high was. To me, as long as you're trading below that, like you have 2 points, your midpoint, which is basically where this S1 is at 112, and then you have your key level at 104, which is basically like your SR flip / range low. um you know, this is just it's magnetic at this point. It's like when it's this ugly, you know, there's no need to step in front of this freight train and, you know, try to catch
Going to
knives.
zero.
So like, well, I don't know about that, but you know, it's
yeah. Well, I think a good show one day would be to do like a show about AI and the
okay.
companies that it's going to help and the ones that it's going to hurt. And like,
So
so
your
these are one.
786,
This is
by
when
the
it's going to
way,
hurt.
your 786 of this retracement is literally my key level. I like that in terms of like, you know, and again, hey, and I know everybody says a lot. If you love ServiceNow at 240, you'll love ServiceNow at 104. You know, like,
It's
so
70.
you'll like it. Hell, maybe 70. Like it may be 70. But yeah, just my goodness. Like how
And if you
deep in
lose
this
that,
go?
oh,
Like,
$10.
look at that, 786. I was curious, how deep did this retracement get? So a 10-year golden pocket gave you a bounce. That's one of the things that you can check to say, hey, like this retracement's pretty decent. Your 786, major low. So 786, pretty good confluence with kind of like this SR flip here, bottom of this range. You're, you know, very similar. It'd be a very deep retracement, but 104. That's where I would maybe start to entertain, you know, entertain a long on ServiceNow. And this is this is a company that I've been monitoring. Um, and you know, I've never had a position on it, and I've watched it like on this rally up. I'm thinking like, my goodness, like, you know, like how am I not in this? Um, I think this is something that I wouldn't mind trading at some point. I just haven't got, you know, I'm not taking like my first position on it yet. But 104, you heard it first here, Trade Alt channel 104. That's where I'd like to see this first, and then which is still down another, you know, 14% basically. Does it get there? I don't know. I think it does. Feels like
Yep.
it. Yeah, it feels like it. Does it get lower than that? Maybe.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, probably. Also, you know, here's another thing too, is to kind of like, I am curious like where this 1-to-1 lines up. The 1-to-1. So again, this is pretty good confluence speed. So your 1-to-1 move off of this, you're measuring high, low, lower, high, right? So these 3 points, Your 1-to-1 for that basically puts you, so an equal move of that puts you at 107, which is basically 104. It's very close. So like somewhere in this region is kind of like a decent, um, it's like a decent area. And after that, what'd you say? 70, Tig?
Yeah.
If it gets too much below 104, I don't think 70 is like a terrible. Again, this is like things are just very, very bad. But your 1618 is at $43, so that's just anyway. That's
I
this is
mean, I haven't done a ton of work on this name in particular, but like basically all these companies in this kind of area, like I wouldn't touch any of them. Like I don't care what the price is.
yeah.
So
I think like if you're riding a good trend, like if you were if you were long here and you had a good entry, like I can like obviously this is all hindsight now looking at this, but like you can see some like pretty good entries, right? Then like the trend here was great, right? You got your close back above cloud, bullish ticket cross, very strong, nice range, breakout. I mean, there's like a few different entries you could have taken. And yeah, like it's really, it was a nice move. Here it's not. Here it's the opposite. Here it's the opposite of this. This is what it looks like, but upside down. Um, so yeah, not in a rush if you're on the long side for me anyway. But I kind of this low, low 100 level, something like that. I think is probably the first like area of interest where I would say, okay, I should probably pay a little bit more attention to this. Is there something here? And then you'll see, I'd switch down to a daily time frame. See, like, is it respecting this? Try to find, see like if there's some kind of good setup here. Maybe you get some kind of range form, kind of similar to this, right? Maybe you get some kind of range that's formed, gives you a sign that the bleeding is stopped. You see maybe some accumulation signs, et cetera, and say, okay, maybe it's time to take a shot. Maybe you'll get a nice rally. But here, nothing here. Pain, suffering, maybe some kind of a bounce soon, which honestly, again, if you get a nice bounce from kind of this posture right here, it's probably not a bad short. Like, on a decent rally, back up to your EQ, wherever your equilibrium points are, and then go from there. We've been at it for I don't know. Where's my counter?
90 minutes.
Hour and a half. That's a good point to stop. I think it's a great
Sounds
point.
good.
But this is something that man, I've been waiting to do a stream again for a while. It's been nice to kind of break the ice, especially one on YouTube. But this is something that we're gonna have to try to do frequently, I think. Weekly, frequently. See how it goes. I know you're in. Because there's a lot of other names like Rocket. There's a lot of other names that like I would love to get into it and break down and try to find some good entries, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of like really decent, like interesting looking charts. We didn't even get into metals, Tig. There's platinum, there's silver, gold, my goodness, copper. It's all kind of stuff. I know you're dying to talk about those.
Oh yeah.
So maybe next stream we'll do another stream and do it at a time that maybe there's a bit more people. But it's fun. It's nice to do it. Anyway.
Yeah, man.
That's all I got. You trade